It's Monday, August 30th, 2010. In this week's BeakerBeat, the FDA has egg on its face after a salmonella outbreak. Could this have been avoided? Details ahead. Plus, countless scientists and researchers get the rug pulled out from under them by a judge. Will Uncle Sam step in? And can attractive, stylish packaging get people to take their medication? See what Big Pharma thinks. All that and more on this week's edition of BeakerBeat.
It's a chicken egg situation.
What do you mean? What's he mean, chicken?
Well, you know, what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Oh, it's irrelevant, isn't
Causality.
it? Stupid. The chicken, obviously.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of BeakerBeat. I'm Mike Justice. Thanks for tuning in. Well, as you know, consumers have been taking a beating recently by one of the largest egg recalls ever. They've been walking on eggshells while the FDA has been scrambling for answers. And yes, this story is filled with rotten egg puns. Man has often wondered which came first, the chicken or the egg. In the case of the recent nationwide egg recall, there's no doubt who had the salmonella first, the chicken. No, not him. No, actually he's a rooster. Looks delicious, but no. That's it. A nationwide outbreak of thousands of cases of salmonella was traced to eggs contaminated with the bacteria. It involves nearly 550 million eggs from 2 Iowa producers. And now we're learning that none of this had to happen. Turns out the FDA recently decided the vaccination of the country's chickens against salmonella is not required. And that is not going over easy. Get it? Over easy? Anyway, turns out vaccination has already been proven to work. Faced with an outbreak of salmonella in the 90s, the UK started a vaccination program that virtually eliminated the bacteria as a health threat. The number of human illnesses has dropped 96% since then. The cost? 1 cent per dozen eggs. But when American regulators created new egg safety rules that went into effect last month, they said there was not enough evidence to conclude that vaccinating hens would prevent illness. Nancy Bufano, an FDA food safety official, said that despite the success overseas, the agency thought that since the vaccines used in the two countries were not identical, it made comparisons hard. Vaccine company executives, however, said the differences were minor and the drugs used in both countries were equally effective. The FDA has said that if its egg safety rules had gone into effect earlier, the crisis might have been averted. However, many industry experts say the absence of mandatory vaccination weakens the FDA rules, depriving them of a crucial step that could prevent future outbreaks. So it makes me wonder if the FDA is kind of like the fox guarding the hen house here. Seems like they're hunting and pecking for an excuse, trying to resolve this hard-boiled case. It's pretty simple. Salmonella bacteria is passed from infected hens to the interior of eggs when they're being formed. The vaccines reduce the number of hens that get infected and make it more difficult for salmonella to pass through to the eggs. About half of American farmers already inoculate their flocks. Now, many people in the American egg industry think this mess will force producers to begin vaccinating hens just to reassure consumers. That's how it works in the UK. There are no laws mandating vaccination in Britain, but it is required, along with other safety measures, if farmers want to place an industry-sponsored stamp on their eggs. The country's major supermarkets only buy eggs with that seal, so vaccination is practiced by 90% of egg producers there. So for producers and consumers, they can look on the sunny side. The only way to go here is up. So tell us what you think about this story or any story that you see here today. It's very simple. Click on the orange button below me. A box will pop up. You type in your comment. You send it to me. I promise I'll read and respond to every one of them.
Oh, well, where did the chicken come from?
Well, it came from the...
You see the egg.
You're the egg.
And when you're done watching BeakerBeat, check out Beaker's blog where you can watch FDA Commissioner Dr. Margaret Hamburg discuss the egg recall flap. Plus, one medical device maker challenges 2 giant rivals in their own backyard. And speaking of devices, find out where the device capital of the country is located. All that and more on Beaker's blog. A shocking and stunning court decision has put the brakes on $74 million worth of NIH funding for embryonic stem cell research. A federal district judge ruled that President Obama's 2009 executive order that allowed for federal funds to be used to study an increased number of human embryonic stem cell lines violates a ban on federal money being used to destroy embryos. That ban, called the Dickey-Wicker Amendment, is passed each year by Congress, and it disallows federal funds to be used for, quote, research in which a human embryo or embryos are destroyed, discarded, or knowingly subjected to risk of injury or death, end quote. $54 million was set for renewed grants and up to $20 million was for new work. But that's now in limbo until the Justice Department can either get the injunction lifted or Congress can pass new legislation on the issue. researchers can continue to use the $131 million in federal funding that has been handed out this year already. Now, most stem cell companies do not rely upon federal funding. After the Bush administration curtailed federal support for stem cell research, companies were quick to protect their research from government intervention. However, the vast majority of stem cell research is not conducted by companies, but rather universities, private researchers, or other institutions, funded by the NIH. So the overall advancement of stem cell research took a hit. One certainty here, the life sciences industry is not happy about another bureaucratic setback for research, technology, and patients. In what has quickly become a game of chicken, Sanofi Aventis and Genzyme are staring each other down, waiting for the other to flinch. This is like an old Clint Eastwood Western. My money is on the big guy. Leaks are sprouting from all over the place on this story, but here's the gist. Sanofi has no interest in paying more than $70 a share, while Genzyme reportedly wants more like $75 to $80 per share. Rumors have popped up that two big Sanofi investors aren't convinced that Genzyme is the best buyout prospect. For example, Shire, a less expensive rival to Genzyme, could be acquired at a lower cost. There have also been reports of Celgene and Allergan as potential targets, though most analysts believe that these are just smokescreens, not serious alternatives. Meanwhile, there are reports that Sanofi is lining up its team to go hostile on Genzyme. Sanofi has recruited a proxy solicitor, and its bankers are querying Genzyme investors on what price they might accept. We'll see if Sanofi decides to pull that trigger. Well, time for some quick hits now, and a new study suggests that the diabetes drug Actos is just as risky as its embattled competitor, Avandia. Researchers found that patients using the Takeda pharma drug were just as likely to have heart attacks, experience heart failure, or die as were patients using GlaxoSmithKline's Avandia. The increase in heart risks was 4% for both groups. Ramius Value and Opportunity Advisors still wants to spend $160 million to buy out Cypress, but the biotech still isn't interested. So now Ramius is seeking a meeting with Cypress's independent directors. Meanwhile, the San Diego-based Cypress just committed to pay up to $33 million to license a pair of new programs for autism and smoking cessation. The World Health Organization has approved the use of Pfizer's Prevnar 13 pediatric vaccine. Estimated sales of the vaccine are projected to hit up to $6 billion by 2016. Is it a deadline if it keeps moving? The debate over how the FDA should ramp up its regulation of lab-developed tests will go on now that the agency has extended the comment deadline to September 15th. More than 100 comments have been received since the agency opened the comment period, which was scheduled to end August 15th. Pfizer's Sutent missed its primary endpoint of overall survival in a phase 3 clinical trial of advanced non-small cell lung cancer patients. However, the drug showed improvement in progression-free survival. Pfizer will analyze the data to try to identify patient subgroups for a future trial in either previously untreated or recurrent disease. Novartis and Nestle have completed their purchase and sale of 156 million shares of Alcon for $28 billion in cash. Novartis is now Alcon's majority shareholder and controls 77% of the company. The wrangling for the remaining 23% goes on, however, as Novartis offered the minority shareholders a deal worth $153 per share. Nestle got $168. Analysts still think Novartis will end up boosting its bid higher to around $165 a share. Stryker plans to acquire privately held Gaymar Industries for $150 million in an all-cash deal. Gaymar specializes in support, surface, and pressure ulcer management solutions. The transaction is expected to close by October 1st. Form and function. These words work together in many consumer products like cars, furniture, clothing. Now they're popping up in the world of big pharma. Big Pharma used to focus solely on the medicine, but they are learning that selling drugs isn't just about the drugs themselves. Like many consumer goods, it's also about presentation. So drug makers are now turning to design experts to create drug delivery systems and packaging that pleases customers. Some examples. AstraZeneca has launched new Arimidex packaging that resembles a cosmetic case. AZ packaging chief Steve Richmond tells the Financial Times that, quote, women told us the old version reminded them that they were cancer patients, not cancer survivors, end quote. Plus, in India, AZ sells its cholesterol drug Crestor in clear packages so patients can see and examine the pills. This allows them to see that they are real, not counterfeit, a serious problem in that country. More examples include Bayer's collaboration with Nintendo to develop a game-like glucose monitor for diabetic children. Novo Nordisk has 5 full-time designers and works with several outside design consultants. Recently, the company introduced brightly colored skins
to wrap around insulin pens.
And that gets us back to function. Experts agree that consumer-friendly packaging actually encourages patients to use the drugs that they're given, which in the end is the whole idea. Well, that's it for this week's edition of BeakerBeat. I'm Mike Justice. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Sit, Beaker. Sit. Good dog.